Adrian MUCALOV, partner at ACTIS, head of long life infrastructure. It's an interesting term, long life infrastructure. What does it mean from an ACTIS perspective?
ACTIS is one of the leading sustainable infrastructure investors globally, and we say we unlock global opportunities. I think what really distinguishes ACTIS is given our heritage in other markets where much of the industry really grew up in the US and Western Europe and Australia. We are focused on really mostly the rest of the world. So we're focused primarily on Asia, Latin America, Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa. I live today in Singapore, where Asia already represents close to half the world's global economy. And we really see the opportunity of a lifetime, given the dynamism and the growth in these markets and the need for real essential infrastructure. Really, when a lot of investors think about their infrastructure programs, they're thinking about power generation, electricity transmission, data centers now, toll roads, core essential infrastructure. And there are more opportunities to invest in that type of infrastructure than ever, as these markets are high growth markets where the governments are looking for foreign capital to help build up their infrastructure needs. So as ACTIS, we see a huge opportunity to capitalize on those trends in energy transition, digitization, and other categories of infrastructure, and be responsible, sustainable, long-term owners of infrastructure.
Yeah, ACTIS is quite unique, actually. I mean, obviously operating these global growth markets, it seems like you've been doing that a long time. You know these markets really, really well. You're talking about Asia and the opportunity there. Just thinking about that experience, but then with the macro backdrop that we've got today, how do you kind of navigate around that kind of dynamic that's changed quite a bit in the last 18 months?
Yeah, so there's sort of the macro side and the micro side. So I think at a macro level, the infrastructure asset class generally has performed particularly well in this period of volatility. And I think that's a long-term trend that people see, but also in the short term, that in periods of macro volatility, whether it's interest rates or inflation, actually infrastructure has unique characteristics that many other kinds of asset classes don't benefit from, where most of our contracts have inflation indexation in the revenues, or we have direct or indirect interest rate protections. We often have currency protections and many other kind of risk protections that are required to attract the billions and billions of dollars of capital to build these infrastructure programs. So it's quite unique for the infrastructure space. And I think in these periods of macro volatility, infrastructure really performs particularly well. And I think most of our investors would say that. At the micro level, it's equally important to know very specifically, right, what is happening in each country, in each sector, in different kinds of contracts, right? So it's not as easy as just investing broadly in any asset. So you talked about knowing our markets. We've been on the ground in these markets for decades, right? And having teams on the ground that deeply understand the regulatory environment, the political environment, the economic environment, which types of contracts offer the best protections, who are the right counterparties, and then implementing assets on the ground. In some of our businesses, we do construction. In other businesses, we're focused more on operations. That technical expertise and the regulatory expertise is most important in any market, whether you're investing in Western Europe, India, Brazil, or the US.
Another thing ACTIS is well known for is its sustainability credentials. I mean, you talk about global sustainable infrastructure investor.
Yes.
How do you weave sustainability into everything you do in the long life infrastructure context? I mean, how do you factor in those different parts of developing a valuable business?
It is a fundamental part of our value creation strategy. We view sustainability in terms of what we call values drive value. Having great values actually drives financial value, whether it's reducing environmental risk, improving safety performance, improving governance. It absolutely unlocks value for us, both during the operating phase and eventually when we look to exit the assets. So during the operating phase, we have many examples, but I think of one company we've invested in, a district cooling company, where the main inputs for the business, the main cost lines, are energy cost and water cost. So by operating more efficiently, sourcing green energy, sourcing less expensive energy, and sourcing recycled water in an area of the world in the Middle East where there's a lot of energy and water scarcity, it absolutely drives financial value. We have lower costs, and then you have a better environmental footprint. And then when we think over time, towards the end of our investment life, having assets with great environmental track record, great safety performance, happy employees, great governance credentials, only improves the quality and the valuations of our businesses. And we've seen that globally, where we have many stories of investors who've told us that they've sought to acquire and invest in assets that were operated by us because they know our reputation as a very responsible, sustainable investor.
What excites you most when you look out at the market right now, perhaps from an ACTIS perspective at a high level, but maybe also, getting down to the sort of long life infra side as well?
I think at a high level, really it's the opportunity of a lifetime. The opportunity to invest in the energy transition, the digital transformation in our markets. What really gets me excited is working in Asia, in Latin America, in the Middle East and Africa, where you see the impact that your investment is having, building and operating essential infrastructure, which is so fundamental to the economic growth of those markets. But these are enormous opportunities. The estimates are in the energy transition alone, to meet our net zero goals globally, we're looking at $275 trillion of investment required. And a huge percentage of that is going to be in the markets that we're really focused on. So it is so exciting to be on the ground working in economic development through infrastructure investment. And from the long life infrastructure perspective, we see more opportunity than ever to acquire those assets. There are now hundreds of billions of dollars of new assets coming online every year that need long-term responsible owners. So it's really great to be here at this conference, and we see more investor interest than ever in what we're doing. So thank you.